Hi there, this is Lee, and today I'm talking about the Dakota Access Pipeline project that's under construction in the Northwest Plains of the United States. The construction is extremely controversial. It's basically an eminent domain fossil fuel intrusion, corporate grab, as we've seen lately in the spirit of the Keystone XL pipeline. This has been something that's been addressed by indigenous populations who are gathering at that location to protest the pipeline, as well as environmental activists and social justice activists. So construction has been stop and go in response to the protest. It's a $3.8 billion project, and it's expected to stretch 1,172 miles. And there's protests going on at the North Dakota State Capitol building. There's also a spirit camp, and that's at the confluence of the Cannonball and Missouri rivers. There's also protests going on in Minneapolis as well as Washington, D.C. There's going to be a gathering because of the hearing that's going to be occurring in Washington, D.C. on this matter. So the federal court hearing is going to be in Washington, D.C., and that's Wednesday, which is tomorrow from the recording of this video. The Energy Transfer Partners are vowing that work is going to continue, but approximately 2,000 people have been engaged in active resistance to this project. And in Minneapolis, and this was last Friday, indigenous community members and a council member, her name is Alondra Cano, presented a resolution calling on the city of Minneapolis to support the native resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline. And so they're saying that the resolution was referred to the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, and they'll have the opportunity to further educate council members on the issue before it's brought back to a full council and passed. So they're saying that it would be a great symbol and powerful statement of the city of Minneapolis that's also very influential in the area and is the birthplace of the American Indian movement, would stand with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. In the meantime, Sioux tribes from that area are converging, and then tribes outside the Sioux are converging on that area. They're gathering numbers, and not just in the Native American population. There are people of all races, of all creeds and colors and classes are converging against this pipeline. They recognize it for what it is a government lie against the people of this nation. People who want a clean environment and clean water, free from oil dumps, chemical spills, and fracking. They don't want that pipeline. So one of the members of the Dakota Citizen tribe, his name is Simon Moya Smith, he just said that last year Hillary Clinton was going around Indian country asking for votes, and now the question is, where is she? And that was a similar question that could have been raised with Louisiana floods. Where is she? She's asking for votes from communities of color. She's saying she's the champion of the minorities, the poor people. She's the lesser evil. She's asking for votes. Where is she when she's needed? So they're saying, like, if she doesn't show up, then, it kind of informs us for real of who she is and who she is not. But they're saying in a nutshell that the Native Americans who have shown up to protest, they, aren't necessarily protesters. They are protectors, and they're protecting the environment for all of us. That land, that water, the air, the way of life, they're protecting it for all of us. and we can't leave them standing alone. We need to stand with them. And so there are additional demonstrations planned. And I'm going to go ahead to another article that's later. And it does say that federal officials pulled the water supply from that area. The state, North Dakota Department of Public Health, or Health and Human Services, provided water for the protesters, but the federal government, Homeland Security, took their water supply. And so that's dated in an article from today, Tuesday, August 23rd. But more people are joining the protests in North Dakota, and then more people in the eastern United States are actually heading to Washington, D.C. to actually meet at the hearing on this very issue. So there's a gathering in North Dakota and then a gathering in Washington as well to show solidarity as this is being decided. So the protest is gaining strength, and more people are descending on the prayer camps. And so that's why the officials removed their drinking water supply. And so it's sweltering hot there, and he says, the Homeland Security Director, Greg Wills, he's saying that he took the water because of alleged disorderly conduct. And unfortunately, and they're claiming that people pointed laser pointers at surveillance aircraft, and there's a denial that that happened. But basically, this is similar to the treatment that was shown in the disaster area post-Katrina, where officials who were supposedly there to help and keep order were making accusations that were not true as an excuse to withhold supplies from the people and to further dominate and control the people of New Orleans. We've seen this before. We know what that is when there's allegations of conduct that does not exist but provides an excuse for repressive treatment. Who would take someone's water on a hot day? That's not even human. That's not even how you treat an animal, but you certainly don't treat humans that way, taking water away from people. And I'm going to say this is strangely dissimilar to how we observed the protests for whatever it was in the state of Oregon earlier this year, where there were large convoys of white men who were actually waving shotguns around, stomping around on federal land, daring anyone to do anything about that. They walked all around, made threats against federal officials, and then took over federal buildings in Oregon and occupied them. They had utilities that were not cut off. They had access to water. They had access to heat. They had electricity. They had all the comforts they needed to keep that space under their control despite their illegal behavior. And no one did anything about it but wait, it looked like to me. And so now you're snatching water from these people, and I'm just questioning what's the difference in treatment and the purpose of that. Yeah, we can see you. There's this thing called the internet. We know what you're doing out in North Dakota. We know how you treated the people in Oregon and how they were obnoxiously walking around waving their guns and being disorderly, for sure. We saw that. And you did nothing but deliver them pizza, and apparently they were also receiving mail. So that's pretty interesting, I think. It's a crazy world, and it's pretty obviously crazy behavior on the part of the federal government who's responding this way, Homeland Security. So they're saying that people are getting overheated, but there's more help coming. There's more numbers arriving. This is not an isolated incident where you can cut off and make up any storyline or narrative of how crazy the people are acting when we know that's not the case. They're peaceful demonstrators. It's a peaceful protest on a project that has the potential to ruin the environment for all of us. It's not just their water, it's our water too. That water flows, that river flows to us all. What affects them affects the rest of us. So you can't isolate them and say, these are bad people, we can do anything we want to them. You're the bad people doing what you want. So anyway, they're saying that the supplies were provided by the North Dakota Department of Health at the tribe's request. And so now the federal Homeland Security is taking the water away. That's just ridiculous. But anyway, there's going to be high-profile activists and supporters that will be rallying in Washington, D.C., outside the U.S. District Court, where members of Standing Rock Sioux will argue that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers granted Energy Transfer Corporation approval for the 1,172-mile pipeline without tribal consent. And so I find that eerily similar to what's been happening in Honduras and what Berta Cáceres protested down there. That there were corporations that wanted to come in and develop the resources and extract wealth from that property that belonged to the indigenous tribes down there. They were supposed to ask for permission and they did not. They just started their construction. And then there was protest by the indigenous populations. And then there was repression by the Honduran government, the same government that Hillary Clinton legitimized after they took over illegally in a military coup. Berta Cáceres lost her life. And if anyone's wondering why Hillary Clinton has not shown up or addressed this issue, her hands are dirty. She did the same thing in Honduras. Do you think if she does not care about Honduras, she doesn't care about anyone here either? People keep saying like, well, I don't care what Obama's doing with his drone attacks in the Middle East, in Syria, and Iran. I don't care what Hillary Clinton's doing with her regime changes in Honduras and Haiti and how she's treating people there. I'm worried about me. I've heard that. I've seen comments like that, and it's just amazing to me because guess what? The drones that were overseas attacking the people in the Middle East, well, there's drones here. There are drones surveilling the Native American tribes in North Dakota. They've got drones over them, watching them, surveilling them, and apparently jamming cell phone signals. Drones are here. It's not over there, it's here. Also, that Honduran coup over the indigenous land and how they treated the Native American tribes so they could develop the environment without permission, that's here too. It's not just in Honduras, it's here. Over there is here now. You can't ignore it. We're all part of the same world. So get your head out of the sand and pay attention to what's happening here. Don't you think for a minute that those drones will not be engaged if Barack Obama feels like it. This is where we're at in our world today. Hillary Clinton, you're looking for her to save the day? Dream on. Where was she when Louisiana was drowning? Where was she when Berta Cáceres was being murdered? Where is she? Maybe she's at a fundraiser. Hopefully while she's getting her money, at least she's not hurting people. That's what we're dealing with. That's the president people seem to want. But anyway, construction of the pipeline is halted. The developers had to pause because of all the protests, and they're waiting to see how the hearing is going to turn out in Washington, which is tomorrow. And so there's also a U.S. District Court hearing on whether a preliminary injunction should be issued against the protesters. And that hearing has been rescheduled from this Thursday to September 8th. And a restraining order against the demonstrators has also been extended until then. So they're saying that there's encouragement by Daniel Hovland, who is the U.S. District Judge, that he wants both sides to meet and confer in good faith and try to settle this matter out of court. But in the meantime, people are converging. And so if you are on one side of the United States and you're able, please lend your support to the people in North Dakota. If you're on the other side of the United States and you're able, then please lend your support to the people in Washington, D.C. who are meeting to decide this issue. And I really hope that Jill Stein is able to make one or other of those meetings, whether she's going to confer with people in Washington, D.C. I know that she was at the D.C. Press Club earlier today discussing the flood situation in Louisiana. She's so busy. She was in Washington. I don't know if she still is, but if she's in that area, maybe she could also give some sort of focus on the public gaze. Again, I talked about how a presidential candidate can serve to turn the public gaze towards important issues. Jill Stein's presence in Louisiana highlighted important issues on the ground in terms of water management, global warming, climate change, and just how environmental racism can affect an entire community. So she was able to do that and then effectively use her communications platform to project those needs across the United States. And if she has time in between her campaign stops, if on her schedule, which I know she's been very busy, I've seen her in the media. She's on the grind, working twice as hard for half as much as the other presidential candidates. But if there's time that she could either attend the hearing in Washington, D.C., which is tomorrow morning, Wednesday, August 24th, or if she happens to be on the other side of the United States, because there are ballot access petitions ongoing. It looks like North Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho have ballot access deadlines. So if she happens to be in that area and is able, maybe she could swing by the North Dakota confluence to protest this pipeline and actually use her media access to, in fact, protect the people, because it does seem like there's been aggressive actions and maybe even false statements about these protesters in order to justify violence against them, in order to manipulate that for the media. So I really hope, even in spite of what's happening, that there continues to be a focus on what's going on with this pipeline. It affects all of us. It's not just them, it's all of us. We all drink that water. We all breathe that air. We all eat the food that grow out of that ground. So it's something that we should all pay attention to and be interested in. And definitely, if you're able to lend your support in whatever way that you're able to, then please definitely help our brothers and sisters in North Dakota.